Good morning. This is Tiffany Fox, and today we're going to be talking about high contrast drawing using white colored pencil on black paper. If you want a ready to go, no prep rollout lesson for your middle or high school art room, this lesson is for you. I'll be using a Prismacolor white colored pencil just because it's a little bit softer. The Crayola pencil will work on the black construction paper, but it has a higher wax content, so you will not get as bright a whites as you will get with Prismacolor. So we will be using Prismacolor, and then I'm using a True Ray black construction paper. Links to all of the materials and the supplies used in this video are going to be in the video description. So right beneath the video, you're going to see a couple of intro sentences, as to what the video is about. And where it says see more, just click on that. That will drop the entire video description down for you. And then you can see the links, not only to the image that we're going to use in the workshop today, but to materials that you can purchase to roll this lesson out in your classroom. So if you're interested in any of the lessons that you see behind me, the links to those lessons are also in the video description below. I will be talking throughout the demonstration about ways to get the kids engaged, daily classroom management strategies, and tips for success. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you get a lot out of this. I'm excited, and let's get started. All right, I just wanted to talk about how I begin this and every other lesson. So the first thing the kids do is they work with a sphere, no matter which medium we're working with: graphite, colored pencil, charcoal, oil pastel. They always work a sphere. So this medium is no different. And so this would be the first thing that they do. This is on a 6x9 piece of black construction paper, of course. And this is their rubric. So rubric is always on a half sheet, stapled to the back, and easy to grade and easy to maintain, and keep everything in order. My kids always display their work as they're working daily. At the end of the day, the class puts their work together on the board. So this really helps with accountability, and the work will really level up in your classroom as a result of displaying the kids' work instead of tucking it away or putting it away in a folder. So this is one of my pride and joy ice creams that I wanted to show you. There we go. This is a young man who was a senior. He was put in my room in the spring semester several years ago, and he didn't want to be in there. He was supposed to be someplace else. His schedule got messed up. He ended up in my room, and he ended up learning to draw. And so this was one of the things. And I asked him if I could keep it, and he said yes. And so it's part of my permanent collection. Outline of the big idea, no details, just getting the shape on very lightly with my graphite pencil, and then I'm going to switch to my colored pencil. So I am using a 2B Prismacolor turquoise drawing pencil, and I am using a white Prismacolor colored pencil. This is True Ray construction paper, black. I buy the 18x24, and I cut it down. Links to all of these products can be found in the video description. In the resources for this workshop, you have this image. If you have the TPT lesson, you have a lot more ice cream images. If you purchased the TPT lesson like last year or even earlier this school year, I have added more images to that product. And all you need to do is re-download it from TPT. You don't pay for it again, and you'll have all of the new updated stuff. Anytime you see on my social media, like my Instagram, where I say, hey, newly updated lesson, if you've purchased that lesson, you go back and re-download it, you'll have all the new goodies. When I'm talking about getting the most out of this particular medium, important things to remember are: keep the pencil sharp. Kids notoriously will just draw all the way down to the nub of that pencil before they'll get up out of their seat and sharpen it. So what I do is I use a little handheld red General's pencil sharpener in a cup in the center of the table. It also minimizes the movement in your room. Or I also have an AFMAT electric pencil sharpener that's here in my office that I love. If you don't mind the sound of an electric pencil sharpener in your classroom, I would highly recommend it. It's got an auto stop. It will not eat your colored pencils. The reason I chose this for the demo is kids have trouble with this cone. And I wanted to tell you how to tell them to draw it. Take a graphite pencil first and lay out their contour. When they get to this cone part, we always work with a value scale. Let me show you here. Okay, so here's our value scale. So what I tell them to do is to get in here with the shapes on the cone, match the value, and match the edges of the shape. For instance, within these 4 little squares here, you can see there's a lighter value square, almost like a puzzle piece that's in the center. So I'll say to them, okay, and there's a value transition in here. It goes probably from this value to this value inside here. So they're dissecting it almost like a puzzle. So I'll say, you're going to have a nice, loose transition within this square. Then you're going to have a hard edge right here. Here's our darker value where the light's not hitting the cone. Then the light's hitting this raised part. So this is going to be bright. And then you're going to go over here on the other side of this thin rectangle, and you're going to have this value right here. They're identifying the value shapes and they're identifying the transitions between the value shapes. If they do that correctly, they're going to have a 3-dimensional raised cone. And it is not the easiest thing in the world to get them to see it. But if you talk to them about dissecting it into these shapes, and then looking at the edges and exactly which value, because what they'll want to do is they'll want to color out this in all really nice and bright. But I always stop them and I say, okay, if we're going to match the image to the value scale, then we know exactly how much value to lay down. It's just a matter of slowing them down and having them really look, because what they'll say is, I'm trying to draw this cone, but they'll just draw these crosses on it and they'll all be white. There won't be any variation in them. And then they're like, well, that doesn't look 3-dimensional. And the reason it doesn't look 3-dimensional is you don't have the right edges and you've treated everything like it's bright white. So I'll say, if you're going to look at the cone, tell me how much of this area is actually bright white. And they'll go, oh, well, I guess not very much, right? Just right in here. And it's not even really bright. So it's just a matter of getting them to see it and reevaluate it and sort of just back up. That's why we do the sphere too. When we do the sphere, they have a sphere reference photo that they use. And I tell them to really evaluate what they're looking at instead of just assuming what they're looking at. So it's very much a right brain thing. Okay, so I'm going to go up here. Let's switch gears and go up here to the ice cream. Now, here's the beautiful thing about ice cream. It's ice cream. All right. It's not somebody's face. It's a low pressure subject matter. I say, all right, guys, if your ice cream if your angle is slightly off, no harm, no foul. Now it can't be drastically off because you want it to look like it came out of the ice cream dispenser. Because this is colored pencil and because it's wax and because it doesn't erase very easily, we want to make sure we have a strong contour line drawing before we go adding the pencil, because if you try to erase heavy layers of the colored pencil, you get a greasy, slimy mess. Work your way up from the darkest values to the lightest values. Instead of going in the beginning and pushing down really hard, you can always add more pencil. It's the taking the pencil away that is the difficult part. So we're going to use little tiny circles and we're going to lay the pencil down carefully. This is a Prismacolor pencil. I'm working on the True Ray construction paper. That's the brand that I just use. There's no preferred brand. It's cheap. It's got a nice black, deep black surface. the cheaper stuff sometimes can look like charcoal gray. So it's not really truly black. I'm just laying in this big area here very lightly. As I'm laying it in, I'm looking back and forth at my value scale. So I'll say to, guys, just constantly have a little mental dialogue with yourself. Is this the value I see? Is this the shape I see? Am I burnishing my pencil nice and evenly? You don't want harsh, crazy strokes that are hard to manipulate and hard to blend. And then when you have to go create a hard edge, like right here up against this edge of this ice cream, it's easier for them to do because they haven't created all of this crazy, hard, waxy lines that they have to try to manipulate. So when I'm talking about working with a medium, I refer to it in terms of manipulating the medium. How do we manipulate it? How do we get it to do what we want it to do? All media is just there for us to manipulate it. So what are the techniques that we're going to use to manipulate this white colored pencil on this paper to make it look like ice cream? So we need the right shapes, and we need the right edges. We need the right values, and we need to be patient with the process. Colored pencil's a very zen kind of a medium. The kids can do such beautiful things with it. And as long as they're confident in what they're doing, they're going to be so excited to come in and get right down to business because the results are going to be there. I just love this lesson, and I can't say enough what a good response and what a good outcome. Every single time I did it, didn't matter who, what class, didn't matter how many kids were in there. It's the fifth thing I do in my drawing scaffold. They'll be like, hey, when are we doing the ice cream? Because they see them hanging out in the hall from the semester before. They're looking forward to it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just working these values, the level of brightness that they need to be. I laid everything in this past week and shot some tutorials because I knew we were only going to be on here for 30 minutes. I just wanted to get most of it on there so you could see it. Now out here on this side of the cone, because it's so dark right here, they have two choices. They can either have this be a lost edge, or they could come out here and put a little tiny bit of background like a halo. And I leave that kind of thing up to them. So we talk about contrast. Mantra is you can draw anything and make it look beautiful. At the risk of sounding kind of crass, I used to say, guys, we could draw like dog poop and we could make it look good. It's all a matter of how you draw it. I never do this any larger than 6 by 8. You have to make it doable, and you have to make it achievable so that the level of confidence can stay high and continue to grow. You constantly want the confidence growing, because if it's not, then as you move on to more difficult things, it's going to get harder for them to stay in the game, especially with art, because it's so intimidating for them. This is kind of cool right here where this, see, and the more I look, this is going to be a real deep statement. The more I look, the more I see. So look how cool that little place is right there where the cone was created. And I didn't even see that. It's also difficult to kind of talk and do this at the same time, but we're getting it done. I already have the ice cream. There is a video in the lesson, but it doesn't have the cone. And I didn't focus on the cone in that one. I just focused on the soft serve part. So this would be a good video to have them refer to. This will be on YouTube, of course. When I'm done. So this up here is really dark, so we're hardly going to put any value in that. And when they do something like this, my goodness, they just get so excited about their progress, about what they've accomplished. I just love, that's my favorite part, I think, is just watching people get excited about what they can do. Especially like my boy Caden I was telling you about, who had no idea he could draw. Absolutely no idea. And just got stuck in my class. As art teachers, we face that a lot. Those kids are my kids that I really want to focus on because they didn't choose to come in. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give you a win if it's the last thing I do. So there's a little bit of light sneaking onto this part here. So we're getting some three-dimensional quality. This is really dark in here, so we're going to leave it dark. This is really light right here. We got a nice sharp edge. So remember, it's a value, it's an edge. It's a value, an edge, and a transition. And what kind of transition are we dealing with? We gotta decide all of those things as we lay it in. I think this needs to come up a little bit. We've done portraits with this white on black. Oh, those are so much fun. And once they understand the medium and how to manipulate it, they'll just do anything. They'll be like, yeah, let's do it. They'll be up for the challenge. Then work very slowly up to the end. And they will say to you, I can't get it any whiter than this. And all you need to say in response to that is, yes, you can. Because when I really press, look what happens when I really press. Like if I need an area that's super white, let's find a super white. Okay, let's go right here. If I really want to get in here, look how white that is. And when they really get all of those values in, the brightest whites to the darkest darks. And if you've taken my colored pencil class, you know we don't use any black colored pencil when I teach color. Save those black colored pencils. And if you have super dark areas and your paper is not super, super dark to begin with, because remember, the paper is the final value here. But say your paper isn't quite as dark as you want it to be just when it was manufactured, take that black colored pencil and have them put it in the darkest parts. That'll add a whole nother dark value to their range. Super, super cool. And it puts those black colored pencils to work. When you do the transparent objects, which is another one of my favorites, you do that lesson, that black colored pencil really comes in handy. So see, as I get more value in here, it looks more three-dimensional. And I'm just sort of going back and forth. I don't say to them, work from left to right or top to bottom or anything like that. I let them kind of figure that out because I think everybody has their own way of doing things. And as long as the medium is being used like it needs to be used, and as long as they're getting the results with the value and the edges, I let them figure the rest out on their own. And I have to get to know yourself. I used to always say, the hardest person to get to know is you. Figure out how you work and how you function best. And that's part of the learning process. There has to be some guidance and some rules and some structure, but there also has to be some autonomy for them. So if it's, the basics are just that it's a puzzle. If they can think about it like a puzzle piece, each piece of the drawing is like a puzzle, each value shape. And then if they can identify the value, and if they can identify the shape, the value, and the edge, and then apply all of those things, it's really almost like a formula. They're going to have gorgeous ice cream. They're going to have gorgeous anything they draw. It's really dark over here. I would most definitely recommend hanging that work up. If you're thinking you don't have, if you have a situation where you have cinder block walls, these 12 by 12 inch pieces of corkboard that are behind me, I have 4 sets of 6. They're $22 a set from Amazon. I'm going to put the link in the video description on YouTube. They have the super sticky adhesive on the back, and I created these 2 bulletin boards in my office, and I am very impressed. The corkboard is a 1/2 inch thick, and it is just super, super durable and dense. You know how corkboard can kind of be not very dense and the pins fall out. This is not like that, but and if you have like 7 or 8 class periods and you have too much work, we always work small in my class, and just because I think it's easier to handle and easier to manage, but maybe pick like 2 days a week that each class is showcased to start before you figure out how you can manage that. But I've had so many teachers tell me that that has been the game changer for them, is displaying the work in progress. Right. Amazing people. Guess what? It's 11:32. So hopefully you will like this video. You will subscribe to my channel, and hopefully you're also on my email list. So like, subscribe, get on that email list, because there's more content on the way.